Hello friends, welcome to my channel. Today, I am sharing a story about an unexpected and unforgettable night out. Sometimes, the most surprising moments happen when we least expect them, and this story is no exception. Let's title the story The Club Encounter I Never Saw Coming. It was a Thursday night, and I had a sudden urge to go out. My week had been stressful, and all I wanted was to unwind and have some fun. I texted my friend, Jake, and asked if he was up for hitting the bars. Jake was usually my go-to for a wild night out, so I figured he'd be game. Sure, he replied, but let's keep it chill. I'm not feeling 100%. We met up at a cozy bar downtown. The vibe was relaxed, the drinks were cheap, and we started with a couple of rounds to loosen up. An hour in, Jake leaned over the table, looking pale. "Man, I'm sorry, but I'm gonna call it. Not feeling great," he said. "Seriously?" I asked, trying not to sound disappointed. "Yeah, you know how it is. Just tired. You should still go out, though. Don't let me ruin your night." After a bit of back and forth, Jake called an Uber and headed home, leaving me with a choice: go home or make the night work on my own. I wasn't ready to call it quits, so I decided to hit up the club by myself. I'd never done that before, but there was a first time for everything. The club was already packed when I arrived. Neon lights danced across the walls, and the music's bass seemed to thrum through my entire body. I headed to the bar, hoping to get a drink and scope out the scene. I ordered a rum and coke and took a seat, letting my eyes wander over the crowd. People were dancing, laughing, and having the time of their lives. But as much as I tried to feed off their energy, I couldn't help but feel out of place. That's when I saw him. Standing behind the bar was a guy who looked like he'd walked straight out of a modeling campaign. He was tall, probably 6 feet 1 inch, with broad shoulders, short blonde hair, and an air of effortless confidence. Tattoos covered his arms, disappearing under the sleeves of his tight black shirt. An eyebrow piercing glinted under the strobe lights, and his smile, well, let's just say it could stop traffic. I felt my cheeks heat up as I tried not to stare. He was objectively stunning, and even if nothing came of it, I figured I could at least enjoy the view. He caught me looking and walked over. "What can I get you?" he asked, his voice smooth but casual. What do you recommend?" I stammered, suddenly feeling self-conscious. He smirked, leaning slightly closer. "Depends. You looking for something strong or something sweet?" "Strong," I replied without hesitation. He nodded, grabbed a few bottles, and started mixing. As he worked, we made small talk, where I was from, if I came here often, the usual. He slid the drink over and watched as I took a sip. It was good, really good, and definitely strong. "Not bad," I said. "You've got skills." "You're not too bad yourself," he replied with a wink. I couldn't tell if he was just being friendly or something more, but it was enough to keep me intrigued. Over the next hour, we kept chatting whenever he wasn't serving other customers. The more we talked, the more I realized how easy it was to get lost in his charm. He had a quick wit and a confidence that made you want to be around him. I told myself he was just doing his job. Bartenders flirt for tips all the time. But there was something about the way he kept coming back to me that made me wonder. At one point, he handed me another drink. "On the house," he said with a sly grin. "You're spoiling me," I joked, taking a sip. He shrugged, leaning back against the bar. "What can I say? You've got good taste." I laughed, shaking my head. "You're trouble, aren't you?" He tilted his head, pretending to think. "Maybe. You up for a little trouble?" I froze for a moment, unsure if I'd heard him right. Was he flirting, or was I reading too much into this? Before I could respond, he leaned in closer. "Finish that drink, and I'll show you a secret about this place." Curiosity got the better of me. I downed the rest of my drink, feeling the warmth of the alcohol settle in my chest. He gestured for me to follow him and slipped away from the bar. I hesitated but decided to see where this was going. We weaved through the crowd until we reached a hallway near the restrooms. The music was muffled here, and the dim lighting gave the space an almost intimate feel. He turned to me, his expression unreadable. "So, what's the secret?" I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Instead of answering, he took a step closer, his eyes locked on mine. "You tell me," he said softly. The air between us felt charged, and my heart raced as he reached up to tuck a stray strand of hair behind my ear. "This feels a little unexpected," I managed to say. He chuckled. "Sometimes the best things are." Before I could overthink it, he leaned in and kissed me. It was brief, but enough to send my thoughts spiraling. When he pulled back, he studied my reaction, a small smile playing on his lips. "Too much?" he asked. "No," I replied quickly, surprising even myself. "Not at all." Before I knew it, he leaned in and made a bold comment, suggesting something a little daring. I thought he might have been joking, but his expression told me otherwise. Curious and slightly nervous, I decided to see where this might lead. I made my way to the bathroom, feeling the thrum of the music soften as I stepped into the quieter hallway. The lighting here was dimmer, casting soft shadows that flickered with the pulse of neon from the main room. I splashed some cold water on my face, trying to collect myself. 100 thoughts raced through my mind, but at the core of it was an undeniable thrill. I barely had a moment to catch my breath when I saw him walk in. His expression was unreadable, a mixture of amusement and determination. He paused briefly, meeting my gaze, and then stepped further into the room. "You all right?" he asked, his tone casual but his eyes keenly observant. "Yeah, just processing," I replied with a nervous laugh. "Fair enough. This wasn't exactly on your agenda tonight, was it?" "Not in the slightest," I admitted. "But here we are." He chuckled, the sound low and warm, easing some of the tension. "Life's more fun when it surprises you, don't you think?" I nodded, unsure how to respond. The energy between us felt electric, and for the first time that night, the weight of my week melted away completely. This was a moment entirely out of the ordinary, unexpected and exhilarating. We talked for a while longer, standing there in that dimly lit hallway. His confidence was magnetic, but it was the small moments, how his smile lingered or the way he tilted his head slightly when he listened, that really drew me in. As the minutes ticked by, I realized something. This wasn't just about intrigue or novelty anymore. It was about connection. Even if the night ended right here, I knew I'd leave with a story that would stick with me, not just for its unpredictability, but for the way it made me feel alive. When I finally left the club, the cool, early morning air greeted me like a wake-up call. The sun was just beginning to rise, painting the horizon in soft hues of orange and pink. I walked down the street, replaying the night's events in my mind. It had been an adventure, one that had pushed me out of my comfort zone and reminded me of the magic in letting life unfold without a plan. And that's my story. Have you ever had an unexpected night out that turned into an unforgettable memory? If you do, I'd love to hear it. Share your stories in the comments below.